For literally thousands of years, whenever we looked up at the sky or wondered why things were the way they were, we told stories, myths, legends. But then, something completely new happened. A revolutionary idea started to take hold. What if we could find answers, not in stories but in reason itself? So, that's what we're going to do. Let's dive right into the story of that incredible shift.
Seriously, put yourself back in their shoes for a second. There are no telescopes, no microscopes, no science class. How would you explain something like a thunderstorm? Or why the seasons change? Or even the biggest question of all, why are we even here?
Well, for a long time, the answer was actually pretty simple and really powerful. The gods did it. Religion wasn't just a part of life, it was the framework for everything. It explained how the universe was made, it gave you the rules for how to live. It was a complete top-to-bottom explanation for everything.
But then, things started to change. Down in ancient Greece and actually in other places all over the world, this new kind of curiosity started bubbling up. A few people started thinking, what if there's another way to explain things? They started looking for answers that weren't based on what they were told to believe, but on what they could see for themselves, on pure logic.
And this, right here, is the first huge turning point in our story. It's this massive shift from myth to reason.
So what was this new approach called? Philosophy. You had these thinkers, guys like Thales of Miletus, who started asking all these questions. But here's the really crucial part. They started to encourage a process for finding the answers, a rational one. See, it wasn't just about getting the what, it was all about the how. How can we actually think our way to the truth?
And that kicked off the first great philosophical quest. They started with a question that is just mind-bogglingly huge. What is everything made of? What's the fundamental stuff of the entire universe?
Okay, so Thales' answer was water. Now, I know what you're thinking. That sounds kind of weird today, right? But hang on. The answer itself isn't the amazing part. Look at his method. He set up criteria. He said the basic stuff must do this and this and this. And then he used logic to get to his conclusion. That process, that way of thinking, that was the real revolution.
Then along comes Pythagoras, and he just completely changes the game. He says, whoa, maybe we're looking for the wrong thing. Maybe ultimate reality isn't a physical thing at all. Instead, he thought the universe was built on something totally abstract, math. He realized that everything, from the notes in a song to the movement of the stars, followed these beautiful, predictable numerical rules.
And this sparked one of the very first great debates in philosophy. It was a total showdown. On one side, you've got Heraclitus. He's the guy who said you can never step in the same river twice, meaning everything is constantly changing, always in flux. But on the other side, you've got Parmenides, who argued using just pure, cold logic that change has to be an illusion. Think about it. If something is, how can it become something it isn't? He said our senses are totally fooling us. Only pure reason can show us the real, unchanging truth.
So out of this debate comes this absolutely brilliant idea from Democritus and Leucippus, atomism. They suggested that, hey, maybe both sides are kind of right. What if everything is made of tiny, unchangeable particles, atoms, that are constantly moving around in empty space? It was genius. It explained how things could be permanent at their core, but also constantly changing on the surface. And get this, it was a totally mechanical view of the universe. No gods, no divine plan needed. For that time, that was an absolutely radical idea.
So after wrestling with these giant questions about the cosmos, philosophy takes a really interesting turn. Thinkers started to shift their focus from out there to in here. The big question wasn't about the universe anymore. It became much more personal. How should we actually live our lives?
And the guy who really led this charge, at least in the West, was Socrates. He basically said, forget the stars for a minute. The most important thing we can do is understand ourselves. For him, being a good person wasn't just about following the rules, it was about knowledge. You can't be good, he argued, unless you first know what goodness actually is.
And what's so cool is that at the same time, halfway across the world in China, Confucius was asking the same big question: how should we live? But his focus was a little different. It wasn't just about the individual, it was about society. He wasn't trying to figure out the cosmos, he was creating a practical blueprint for how to build a good, just society, right here, right now. It was all about respect, duty, and cultivating personal virtue.
And then, over in India, you get another incredible answer from Siddhartha Gautama, who we know as the Buddha. His approach was almost medical. It was like a diagnosis and a prescription. He started with this universal problem: suffering. Everyone experiences it. Then, using reason, he pinpointed the cause: our own desires, our attachments to things. The Four Noble Truths you see here? That's his step-by-step, logical path for how to find inner peace.
All right, now we get to a real clash of the titans. I mean, this is a debate that has literally shaped Western thought for thousands of years. We've got Socrates' star student, Plato, and then Plato's star student, Aristotle. They pushed philosophy to a whole new level, but they disagreed on pretty much the most fundamental question you can ask.
So, here's the core of it, right? Plato believed that true reality isn't this world. It's in a separate, perfect, unchanging realm of ideas or forms, and we can only access it with our minds. Aristotle, though, he thought that was nuts. He said, no, reality is right here, all around us. It's the physical world, and the way to understand it is by getting out there and observing it with our senses.
Plato's whole idea is perfectly captured in his famous allegory of the cave. He basically says we're like prisoners in a cave, and the world we see with our eyes is just shadows on the wall. They're flickering, imperfect copies of the real thing, the perfect, true form of dogness or justice or beauty that exists in that higher, real world.
But Aristotle just flips that whole idea on its head. You gotta remember, he was a biologist at heart. For him, if you want to know what a dog is, you don't try to imagine some perfect dog in another dimension. No, you go out and you study as many actual physical dogs as you can find. For him, truth is found by looking for patterns in the real world, the one right in front of our faces.
Okay, so after the absolute intellectual fireworks of Plato and Aristotle, the world around them got a lot more chaotic. And philosophy, it adapted. It started to become less about these huge, abstract theories and more about something really practical. How can we find some personal peace in a crazy world?
And out of this new environment, three major schools of thought really took off. Each one offered a different kind of roadmap for finding peace. You had the Stoics, who were all about building inner strength. You had the Epicureans, who just wanted to live a quiet life, free from fear and worry. And then you had the Cynics, who took a much more radical approach and just decided to reject society's rules completely.
Let's take Epicurus. He argued that our single biggest source of anxiety is the fear of death. But check out his logic. He says that fear is totally pointless. Why? Because when we're here, death isn't. And when death is here, we aren't. Simple as that. He believed if you could just get your head around that simple fact, you could find real peace of mind. Then you've got Diogenes the Cynic, who offered the most out-there path of all. He was convinced that all of society's rules, owning stuff, chasing status, even having good manners, were just traps that make us miserable. For him, real happiness wasn't about getting more. It was about wanting less. In fact, wanting nothing at all. That, he said, was true freedom.
And finally, we have the Stoics, led by Zeno. They offered this really powerful middle path. Their whole idea was this: look, we can't control most of what happens to us in the world, but the one thing we can always control is how we react to it. The goal for them was to live in harmony with nature, to accept what you can't change with a sense of calm and wisdom.
So when you look back, from figuring out what the universe is made of to finding the secret of a good life, these early thinkers started these massive quests that, let's be honest, we are still on today. So as we wrap this up, the final question isn't just some dusty old historical thing. It's really for you. After all this, 2,500 years later, which one of these quests for answers matters the most to you?